There are workplaces where stress is such a part of the job that it can never be totally eliminated. In such situations, it's essential that those in these occupations prioritize their own emotional strength and resilience. We'll speak with a veteran of one of these high stress occupations who's developed the ability to work emotionally smarter, not psychologically harder. That conversation is up next on this episode of the Psych, Health, and Safety USA podcast. From Flourish DX, this is the Psych, Health, and Safety USA podcast. As workplace mental health has become a global priority, there's a greater focus on addressing psychosocial hazards. Each week, we look at psychological safety from an occupational health and safety perspective. Let's talk psychological health and safety. Welcome to this episode of the Psych, Health, and Safety USA podcast. I'm your host, Dr. I. David Daniels, and I want to thank you for tuning in. Each episode, we seek to increase awareness of the importance of psychological health and safety by learning from the lived experiences, research, and expertise of our guests, as well as advocating strategies to reduce harm and minimize vulnerability to psychosocial hazards in the American workplace. So my guest in this episode is no stranger to pressure, and not just the kind felt at great depths underwater. We're joined by a seasoned Fire Rescue Services Chief Safety Officer whose calm demeanor has become legendary in his department. Whether coordinating large-scale emergency responses or slipping into the murky unknown as a part of the dive rescue team, he brings an unwavering focus and steadiness that his colleagues say is almost otherworldly. He's had a front and center seat during two of the most harrowing events in recent memory, the Baltimore bridge collapse and the DC plane crash, where he was not only involved in the precision associated with dive rescue and literal chaos, but his dive team jokes often that they check on him more during these missions because not that he's unpredictable, but he's so calm. And so we're going to dive a little bit into what gives him the ability to be able to operate with this level of psychological resilience, and even in the situations that are extremely chaotic and have significant risk to the responders. So we're going to find out a little bit more about some of those tools and some of the things that help him tick. We're going to start by an introduction of my guest by my guest with this question. Who is Carl Knight?
Well, thank you, Dr. Daniels. Appreciate the opportunity to be on your show. Who is Carl Knight? Carl Knight is a husband, a father. I'm a military veteran. I'm a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated and a veteran of the Baltimore City Fire Department.
So we're going to actually in our conversation talk about, because I think all those things make you who you are. All those experiences kind of contribute to not only who you are, but how you see the world. And before we get into that, I want to ask, what does psychological health and safety mean to you?
Psychological health and safety. So most of the time people think when they're thinking about safety, they're thinking about the physical aspects. They're thinking about, in our world, they're thinking about ensuring that you have proper protective equipment on. You have the proper tools that you need, but they don't always think about the psychological, because psychologically you need to be prepared as well. Just like you need to ensure that you have your proper turnout gear, face masks, SCBA bottles on, you also need to be mentally sharp. Sometimes people have it, everyone has issues, but it's all about those issues, utilizing or compartmentalizing those issues. Understanding that when you're at work, yes, you may have issues at home, but as they say, you need to leave home at home and work at work, because sometimes they do intertwine. Because if you're having those issues at home, then when you bring them to work, it can affect your working and your just everyday living. So it's all about ensuring that you are mentally healthy as well as physically safe.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't know if I recognize it as much early on, in my fire rescue career, as I did toward the middle and end, that, it is really, 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 and I can argue some days it's even more important to be mentally sharp, because if you're not mentally sharp, you really can't be physically sharp. You're not going to do the things necessary you're not going to eat right. You're not going to be concerned about getting sleep. You're not going to be concerned about exercise. You're not going to be concerned about that, because there's so much kind of going on in your head sometimes that, like I said, you can't get to the physical piece, which just feeds back and makes it psychologically even worse. So, talk to me a little bit about, I've heard stories of folks who, they were kids and they saw a fire truck go down the street in their neighborhood and says, "Oh, I want to do that someday." And others who've had relatives and others who just kind of stumbled into it. So what inspired you to be interested in the fire rescue service as a profession?
So me, I had two of those things. I was not one of those young men who said that I always wanted to be in the fire department. I was not. That wasn't me. But I found out later on after I joined the department. So my uncle, I had an uncle who was a fire buff. So what I mean by that is he would have his little scanner, he would listen to fire calls, and if they were close to his house, he would jump in his car and he would go to those fire scenes just to watch the precision of the men and women putting out the fire. And from what I was told on several occasions, I happened to be with them, so I went with them. So I did find out later on that I had that aspect of it. But then, other than that, though, I, as you say, stumbled upon it. What happened with me, as I said, I'm a military veteran. I was on active duty during the very first Gulf War. And when I came home from that. I was in college. I had an aunt of mine, and she was used to come down to the Department of DH. She used to come to Department of Human Resources, looking for city jobs. And she came down one day and she called me. She said, "Hey, fire department's hiring. Bad part, you need to get down here tomorrow to put in an application because the application closes tomorrow." So I said, "Okay." I got out of class. At that time, I was in college. Got out of class, came downtown, filled out the application, and got the notification that they accepted my application. And so when I took the exam, 3,000 people took the exam with me. Out of the 3,000, about 1,500 of us passed it, and I was in the first class off of that list.
Wow. 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 So the almost accidental action of an aunt changes the course of history. Actually, though, it does.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. It changed a lot of stuff. Wow. Wow. So the fire rescue service has its kind of own unique lane when we start talking about safety. As a matter of fact, most folks in the fire rescue service that I talk about safety tend to think about it again predominantly about what do you do at a fire, and some of the things that you listed, that they have their protective equipment, don't drive a truck too fast, and kind of all associated with firefighter stuff. And then there are some who've decided to take it even further and become a safety professional within the fire rescue service, which is a different kind of thing. It's a different kind of thing. And I don't know what your experience has been. Sometimes it makes you kind of an oddball because you aren't taking the kind of risk that other people take, and you're the ones who have to tap people on the shoulder and go like, "Yeah, it's probably not a good idea." And so what got you interested in the safety lane in terms of being in the fire rescue service?
So that's another one of those avenues that my mentor was a former Lieutenant James Bethia, who unfortunately passed in the line of duty death back in 2014. He was my second lieutenant in the fire service. When I first came in 1994, I was working under Lieutenant Joe Wade, and then my second lieutenant was Lieutenant James Bethia. This man taught me just about everything I know about the fire service. He was not only an officer as far as the fire service goes, but he was a teacher. So he was part of what he did on part time was he was one of our fire investigators. So every fire, after we're putting out the fire, he's now walking me around like, okay, look at this. What do you think? What do you see? To help me to understand some of the investigative portion of the fire service. So towards the end of his career, he decided his knees were getting a little bad, so he wanted to come out of jumping up and down out of the fire truck every day. So he came into our safety office, and he transferred into the safety office, and he worked here for up until his passing. Well, while he was down here, he knew that the office was expanding, and he thought I would be a good fit for the office. So him and I had a conversation, and he talked to the chief at the time, Chief William Jones, and they were like, okay, well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do a 2-week trial. 2-week trial to see if I like being here and if Chief Jones liked me being here.
Right.
So we did that 2-week trial, and that 2-week trial turned into now 16 years. I've been in this office for 16 years. I literally can say that I started at the bottom of the office, and now I'm the chief of the office.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Wow. Wow. That, again, that in and of itself is rather unique because for all kinds of reasons. First of all, it's becoming more common, but not a lot of fire departments 16 years ago had a specific lane for safety officers. They may have had one, maybe one on a shift or something like that, but not really an infrastructure, not really a system to focus specifically on safety. Again, I had opportunity to be the second wave of safety officers in the city of Seattle. This would have been 30 or so years ago. But again, the only reason, to be quite honest, the probably only reason and the major reason is that we'd lost 4 people, and the state came in and said, basically, you're going to have to do a better job. And so this is what we did is we threw resources at it. But it was never really a place for a career for people. That's the thing that makes your situation a little unique, is that it's an opportunity, regardless to how people may think about, because some people think that the only career in the fire rescue service is riding on fire trucks. But that's got a lot of issues associated with it. It does. It's fun when you're 25. As you have more birthdays, it's not, physically it's not as much fun, and emotionally I'm not sure it is either. I'm not. So coming up as kind of a career safety professional, how has that been different? How do you think that's been different for you compared to folks who spend most of their time working in fire stations?
So let's go back. So we were talking about the staffing. So for us, yes, we staffed 2 on-duty, on-shift safety officers. With those were the ones that run the calls, and then we had our administrative staff. We had the chief safety officer, along with, at that time it was just one administrative lieutenant, and then I came down. And for me, as I said, that trial turned into them having to actually create a position for me, because there wasn't even a budgeted position for me. So the department had to create a position for me. And then from there, that's when the movements of the office happened. And what I mean by that, so I came in as a non-office officer, but then we had promotional exams within the office, and that's when the progression started. So I promoted to fire lieutenant, safety and health lieutenant, and then, as I said, so for our staffing, it was a lieutenant, a captain, and then the battalion chief, and that was the progression. Several years in, then we went from a lieutenant captain, and then the battalion chief's position was actually upgraded to a deputy chief's position. And then that was the progression within the office. So I've been sitting in this seat about 5 years, well, 3 with the actual position, and then a year and a half acting. So, but since I've been in a position, what I wanted to do was make the same upward promotional opportunities for our office as with suppression. So now it is that same officer progression. Lieutenant, captain, I created a battalion chief, and now deputy chief. So the same progression for fire suppression, same progression for our EMS is also now the same progression for our office. So this way it also gives members who may have thought about wanting to do something with safety, but then they didn't want to get caught in that, well, yes, I want to be safe, but I also want to progress as well. You got to give, it's a double edge. That's the double edged sword because, yes, I want to do the right thing, but I also don't want to stay at this level. I want to be able to progress in my career as well. And now we have a career progression within the office, just like everyone else. And it's interesting. So one of the first things, so we do also have several fill-in safety officers on each one of our shifts. We have 4 different shifts. So we have, as I said, let's go back. So as I said, when I first started, we had 2. Then of course, budgeting hit. We were cut down to 1. And then, as you said, we had a tragedy several years ago where we had several members that were killed in the line of duty. And because of that, we were rebudgeted for that second position. So now we're back to having the 2 on-duty shift safety officers. So that's been the progression of that in the office. And it's, one of the things with our fill-ins, their first day of training, the very first thing they have to do is have a sit down with me. And that sit down is, I need to see where your head is. The very first question I ask them is, why do you want to do this job? Because this is a thankless job. People, we, as you just said, we're the ones who are tapping people on the shoulder, saying, hey, think about this, or should you be doing that? And for me, my mindset is always this: I don't mind if you're going home mad at me because you're going home.
Right. Yeah.
As long as you can go home the same way you came to work mad, so be it. You'll eventually calm down, but you're able to go home. The hardest thing that I've ever had to do is, as I told you, my mentor, when that tragedy happened, I had to go. I was one of the ones that went to his house to inform his wife that he was not coming home. Don't ever want to have to do that again. So if you going home mad at me is the reason that I don't have to do that again, I'm okay with it.
Okay. Yeah. I've only had to do that once. It was someone who passed away in an off-duty accident. And it was a fishing accident where one of our firefighters, his boat capsized and he drowned. So and same thing that he had to go and knock on the door of his family in the middle of the night, and that is that's just something that there's just nothing good about that at all. It's just, first of all, the fact you have to do it at all, but second of all, the whole emotional piece about having to share this kind of information with people, and you think about your own mortality and a bunch of other stuff, and I don't wish that on anybody. I just really it's a really tough thing to do. So you are not only leading the safety efforts in your organization, really big metropolitan fire department, but you're also still an active member of the dive team. So tell me a little bit about your history first of all, when did you start diving, and tell me a little bit about how how those 2 passions integrate. That I'm a diver and that type of thing, and I'm also into safety. How'd you start diving?
So I've always, for the longest time, I wanted to be on one of our special operations teams. When I first came in, we had the dive team and we had our heat team at the time. Um, Getting on those teams was extremely hard because a lot of members, when they got on, they did not get off until they retired. So it was very hard to get on. For me to get on to the dive team, though, it did take an unfortunate incident, and that was back in 2004. In 2004, we had a water taxi accident. It was July of 2004, and uh, we have water taxis in our harbor basin that goes from one portion of the city to another. And one of the taxis, there was a you don't say freak storm, but there was a storm, one that was not predicted, that came through in the middle of the afternoon, and it capsized the water taxi, and the passengers ended up in the water, and several of them drowned. And of course, the team was called in because I wasn't a part of the team at that time. Well, the team was called in, and when that happened, um, it showed those who really wanted to be divers and those that were on the team to say they were on the team.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So,
Mm.
as you know, the saying, the men were separated from the boys.
Oh,
And
wow. Wow.
at the end of that incident, so because of that incident, actually, the best part of that incident was everyone was returned to their families. The team was able to recover everyone that was missing, and everyone was returned to their families. Well, after that, they revamped the team, and that's when I put in my application for the team. I sat down and was interviewed by the team, and I'll tell you, at that time, I had no diving knowledge whatsoever.
Really? Okay.
Yes, I had no I've never been diving. Now swimming, I've been I was a competitive swimmer since I was 7. So I could swim, but had no clue about anything from diving. So everything that I learned was taught by our team. Um, Yes. So back then, well, even now, we still teach our own. So if you don't come in with the certification, we actually have a certified instructor who will get you certified to be a diver. And that's what happened. As I said, I was uh, applied, got accepted, did my interview, and I've been on the team since 2004.
Wow. Wow. And so something you just talked about in that water taxi incident, I'm going to read below the headlines a little bit. I suspect that the separation may not have been the physical stuff, but the emotional stuff associated with that, or was it a skill related thing?
Do you need more psych health and safety in your life? Then head over to the Flourish DX Academy for several free on-demand e-learning courses. If you're an internal professional, follow Flourish DX on Eventbrite to register for any of our free fortnightly interactive webinars. Our flagship professional practice program is also exclusively available for internal professionals. The 12-week course blends theory, applied practice, and interaction with other professionals through live lectures and a monthly community of practice session. Find out more about all these learning opportunities or inquire about a bespoke in-house training at the Flourish DX Academy. www.45003.org. Now back to this episode.
I do not have the answer to that. And the reason I can say I don't have the answer to that is because I wasn't on the team then. So I don't know what was the reason the reason for those who did dive. It was approximately 6 to 7 different divers who were just diving over and over and over out of a team of 20 plus. But the same 6 were, and
And again, again, not having been there, because I tend to connect somehow as a society, we have separated the emotional parts from the physical parts of lots of things. And we go to the fact that the person didn't have the skill or didn't have that was emotional. I mean, there's something inside that person that says, I don't want to go do, even though I'm on the team, I don't want to go do that right now. And I'm not here to label it as anything. It doesn't, was it the fear of that particular incident? Was it their, lack of practice or skill? Or all of those are emotional things, though. They really are. It's something that's going on in a person's head that doesn't connect. What this job requires is I have to have a certain mindset, and I have to have a certain set of skills, and I have to be able to do a particular way. And but some people don't. They don't necessarily have it in the organization. Sometimes kind of papers it over and just says, well, it's kind of okay. And in this case, it sounds like they said, look, it's important that we get people who can actually do this, not just say they can do it.
No, you are absolutely correct. And it's when you're talking about the emotional portion, we see it, especially now. No, well, since I've been on the team, we see it now where, as I said, we teach you to be a diver. So we start off teaching you to be a diver in the water where you can see any and everything. So you'll start off and you'll be in the pool, in the swimming pool. You'll be in quarries, a quarry where you can see 30, 40 feet in front of you, below you, around you. And then once we get your skills to the basic level, the meeting that minimum standard to get you certified, now we have to acclimate you to what we do. Now we put you in those locations in our harbor, where now the difference is where before you could see 30, 40 feet in front of you, now you can't see 6 feet in front of you, 2 feet in front of you. And we've had several members who we've gotten them to meet the minimum certification, the standard for the minimum certification. But as soon as we put them in that harbor water, they're like,
It's different. It's different.
Yeah, it is different. And it's like, no, I don't want to do this. We've had several members who've left the team after being put in that type of water.
Yes. And again, I will argue it is not the physical skill there. It's not. It is something emotional. It is, because human beings, there's a way that we're used to operating in the world. We're used to being able to use our senses. Now, when you take some of those things away, it just does something in people's heads and again, another thing I'll say about that doesn't make them bad people or any of that kind of stuff. It doesn't say there's something wrong with them. It just says that environment and the hazard associated with that thing isn't something they're not able to either able or willing to take on. That's all. That's what it means.
Yes, because they're all good firefighters or fire officers. It's just, as you said, once you put them in that different environment where they can't control it, it's an environment that they can't control. They are at the will of something or someone else, and now it's okay. No, I can't do this.
Right. Yeah, and again, honestly, I think that applies to a lot of occupations, to a lot of different things, because sometimes people think that because that person is really good at this thing, that they're going to be good at that thing in a different environment, and they may not. And what's so important that you all do is you actually put them in the environment rather than just tossing them into it. Because if that happened during a rescue, if that happened during a recovery operation where it's really and there wasn't training in advance, that could be bad. That could be really, really bad. Really, really bad. Yeah. To know people's limitations in advance of subjecting to that rather than just, they'll be okay. So talk to me a little bit about this. Again, this is a story we were having another conversation, and you shared that over the years. So I did, you're telling me this story. I don't think I've ever inquired about, how you became a diver, because my perception when you told me the story about, how you're now able to be so calm and all that, I thought, he must have been diving since he was a kid or something like that. So you've now gotten to the point being, on the team for this period of time, that at least it's, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I've heard you say that now sometimes people wonder if you're okay because you're so calm in that environment. So How do you think you got that way? What do you think it allows you to be in that environment and stay so calm and so regulated?
So for me, I believe it's a combination of several things. One, my faith. I understand. I believe in God, and I know that He's got me no matter what I do.
Yeah.
Um, he's got me. That's the first thing. Second thing is, as I said, I'm a military veteran, so I've been in pressure situations. Learning that one of the things that they teach you, they put you through those stressful situations in basic training, so that it's because it's a controlled environment. Once again, you've got that controlled environment. So then when you get put in the real environment, all you have to do is revert back to your training. So that there, going to college, same thing. Stressful situations at times, but same exact formula. You slow down, know what you know, do what you know. And then our fire academy. Once again, it's just the reiteration of training, knowing your training, following your training. And then for also part of that training is consumption. They tell you about your air consumption. They teach you about air consumption. The more you breathe, the heavier you breathe, the more air you're going to use. So me mentally, I'm thinking I don't want to use a lot of air.
Right.
I want to get the mission done, and I don't want to use a lot of air doing it. But also, as far I've been an athlete all my life as well. So being into sports all my life, I've played some sort of sport. And being into sports, and then I've also been, as I said, been a swimmer. So all of these things teach you how to regulate your breathing, and especially the swimming portion. It teaches you how to regulate breathing. So I regulate my breathing to where, as you was alluding, so when we're in trainings or when we're in situations, whoever's we always have a line of communications to the top side. And whoever's at the end of the line, most of the time, especially if it's their first time ever being on the end of the line with me, it's like they'll ask me over and over again, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." It's like, okay. And then after a couple more minutes, "You okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." And then when I come out, I was like, they always say, we don't hear you breathing. I was like, "Yes, you're not supposed to." When you normally walk around, the person beside you shouldn't be hearing you breathe. You're breathing so hard that the person beside you hear
Right.
you breathe. So
Right.
when you're diving, you shouldn't be breathing so hard that everyone hears you. So it's just yeah, it's been a combination of trainings and my faith is I know when it's time, it's gonna be my time, no matter whether I could be diving or I could just be walking down the street. So, but either way, it's just it's funny. It's a couple of us on the team who are like that. Where we come out. So we always start with a certain amount of air going in our bottles, and usually our dives last approximately 20 minutes. And so you'll start with 3,000 psi of air when we go in. And a lot of times after my 20 minutes, I may still come out with 2,000 psi, where some others are coming out with 1,000 or less. Now, it's like, you don't breathe. I was like, yeah, I do. I didn't go in with three and come out with three, but I just, I don't breathe those. It's relaxing, and it's all about calm. And as we were talking earlier about the emotional portion, because if I'm amped up and hyped up breathing wise, then that's going to take away from me um, completing the mission, which is recovery or rescue of our targets. So that's why for me it's I want all of my senses heightened at the same time instead of just one being heightened and the other ones not. So if you're calm and relaxed, you have all of your senses at your disposal at the same time.
Right. Right. Yeah. It It sounds. I actually heard recently. I heard someone who is a Buddhist monk. As a matter of fact, I was listening to him on a podcast. He was talking about some of these practices that he engages in, and a lot of it is almost a lifestyle type thing. Just thinking about your life in general, and taking charge of things that you actually could take charge of. I mean, so as you were saying, when I'm walking next to somebody, why I should hear the person next to me, that tells me there's something wrong, not that it's normal. But it seems to me that in a lot of cases, a lot of environments, a lot of organizations, a lot of people have normalized being stressed out. So when you're not, you look weird, which is, if you think about that, it's like, why would we normalize being hyped up and stressed out as opposed to normalizing being calm and being focused? I mean, because it's better for us. It's better for me emotionally. It's certainly better for me physically. So tell me a little bit about how you take that mindset and that practice over into the other parts of your life when you're not diving. I mean, does that, I assume it carries over, because I don't think you could do it regularly if it didn't carry over to other parts of your life. But maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, tell me more.
No, absolutely. For me, I every day I wake up. First thing I do before my feet touch the floor is I thank God for waking me up. And so after that, I deal with everything else. I tell people when someone is asked, when you greet someone, you say, "Hey, how you doing?" When I'm asked how I'm doing, I'm blessed. I woke up this morning, so I'm blessed. Everything else I can deal with, because no matter what it is, I'm able to see the day to have to deal with whatever it is. And so now I'm calm. I try to stay consistent all day long. You know, it's interesting that calmness that I have. And it's funny because I was having a conversation with with a battalion chief the other day, and him and I were having a conversation, and he said, "I don't ever see you stressed." I said, "I do get stressed. I do have issues, but you're right. You're not going to see it. You're not going to see it, because if you if I portray it outwardly, then it may affect your day. And I don't want my day affecting your day."
Right, right, right.
Because we know if someone's having a bad day, you may know when someone is having a bad day, and then it could put you in that bad mood just because someone who's around you is in a bad mood. Why? That's not fair to them. That's not fair to them.
Yeah, the thing I hear you saying though too, because I hear that from some, and what some of those folks are doing is masking what's going on, not dealing with what's going on. And to me, it sounds like you have this, again, a part of it is your faith practice, a part of it is your training, a part is your background, is that you live your life in such a way that stuff's going on, just like it's going on with you, but I'm dealing with it. And I may deal with it differently than you do, but I deal with it in a way of focusing on my breathing and focusing on staying calm and focusing on, doing what I can do and controlling what I can control and not getting worried about that. It's that kind of, and like I said, sometimes particularly when I bring folks, fire rescue folks and folks who do law enforcement, all that, people who aren't in those environments with oh yeah, their lives are so much different than everybody else's. No, they're not. These regular human beings got the same stuff that everybody else is dealing with, the same stuff. And on top of that, have some stuff that's kind of unique to the job and all that type of thing. But when you're not diving, out to find, folks, bodies from a plane crash, you still have a family. You still got, everybody's got a couple of bills to pay. All of those things. All those things are still going on. So again, the thing that is so refreshing about just hearing you again, really, a normal guy. This can be done. This isn't some otherworldly, not possible type of thing, but you got to do the work. You got to do the work.
Absolutely, you have to do the work, because it's not just going to come. It doesn't just, you don't just wake up and this is how you are. You actually have to say what you mean what you say, and believe all of it. And know that if faith without works is nothing. So you have to put in the work. And the reward for putting in the work is greater. It's an awesome reward. I mean, yes, like I said, as you just said, I still have life issues. Every day you have life issues. But it's what you do with those life issues, how you handle those life issues, and then you move on. But you handle them. And I always tell people, I try to explain to people who are going through, those who I do talk to, and it's like, the thing is, you're going through. When you go through something, you always keep moving. You may take smaller steps, but you should always be moving forward, because you're going through something and not staying in something.
That's a mic drop moment. I got to remember that one. There's a difference between going through something and being in something. Wow. Wow. That's wisdom. That really is. That really is. Wow. So as we wrap up the conversation, I often comment about the fact that we have a different generation of people that are coming into the workplace these days. And part of me is really, I love Gen Zers. I really do, because I think I was probably one of them, born about 40, 50 years too early. I really see they're out with their, here's how I feel, my emotions and all that type of thing. But I think sometimes me saying that gives people the impression that I don't believe that resiliency is still important. It is. I can have all the, emotions I want about how I want stuff to be, and I want it to be this way. It's not always going to be that way. And I find that the more resilient I am myself, the more I'm able to deal with that. I'm actually able to have greater success, because I can't fix everything, but I can address me. I can deal with me. So do you have any tips and tricks and tools, or just thoughts that you want to share with folks who they're trying to be calmer in their work? They're trying to get their stress under control. What are some things that Carl Knight might share with them about how they could be better at that?
Well, one of the biggest things is you control the things that you can control. Those things that are beyond your control, you do your portion of it. And then if someone else has a portion, you let them do theirs. But the whole point is, there's no need for you to stress about something that you have no control over. Why are you going to stress yourself out? Why are you going to make yourself sick? Why are you going to cause yourself to have hypertension, ulcers, stress for something that you can't control? You can only control a certain amount. And then once you've done the things that you can control, you just have to have faith. As the adage say, let go and let God. Because it will, as I said, the things are, I have a tattoo on my arm. It says this, the verse that no weapon formed against me shall prosper. I know weapons are going to be formed. I would be silly to think that they won't, but I know that they won't prosper, because I know He has me. And so I know that's where that I do what I can control. And then everything else, I let go and let God.
Right. Well, Chief, servant of this country and of your community, thank you so much for what you shared. This is kind of what I was hoping. Because like I said, sometimes people don't get the opportunity to talk to people who, and again, you're not psychologist or a therapist or any of that kind of stuff, because sometimes people, will believe, oh yeah, those folks, they've gone to school. This, what you shared is very basic and simple information that people can use today. You don't have to go take a pill, any of that kind of stuff. You can use this today. There's a difference. Again, that's probably going to be on my list now of things to repeat. You're going through it. You don't have to stay in it. So thank you so much for what you shared, and again for what you're doing for your community, and again for the services you provide to the country. We're all better for it thanks to that aunt.
Absolutely.
Thanks to Auntie. Yeah, thanks a lot to Auntie. All righty. So if you're watching or listening to the podcast for the first time, welcome. I hope something that you've heard will bring you back to a episode in the future. Previous episodes of the podcast can be found at psychhealthandsafetyusa.com. You can watch, like, subscribe, and share the podcast on the Flourish DX YouTube page. And please do join the Psych Health and Safety USA movement by connecting and becoming a subscriber on LinkedIn. So until next time, stay tuned and look out for the next episode of the Psych Health and Safety USA podcast. Thanks very much. Tune in each week for new episodes of the Psych Health and Safety USA podcast. If you have a story or know of one that needs to be told, reach out to us on LinkedIn or send an email to david@id2-solutions.com, or go to the Flourish DX website at flourishdx.com. We'll see you next time.